Hello, my friends, and hello, Chris. Welcome to You Normal. To all of you out there, I send a huge hello, welcome, and this is the place that you get to come as you are and leave as you are meant to be. In a world where we're often told that those things that feel so uncomfortable to us, that it's normal, we're pushing the envelope on that. We're pushing back on it, that it's not actually normal. It may be normal for somebody else, but you get to define your own normal. So, with that, I'd like to introduce you to my guest today, Chris Carter. She is the founder and owner of Follow My Side Hustle. And Chris brings, I would say, I was going to say years, but probably decades of experience to the conversation today through her business to her clients. And I'm really excited for this conversation. So, welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Robina. Very excited to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity. Very excited for what we're going to chat about today.
Me too. Me too. So, obviously, we have everyone's talking about the great resignation, which for me, I was like, it's just a redirection. And I'm sure this speaks even more volumes to you and what you're doing. Although our businesses are very similar in what we look at, but you're likely having a lot of conversations around the whole great resignation. How do you design a business that lights you up? But before we get into that, I do want to just pause so people understand what it is that you're bringing today and a frame of reference. So if you want to share either a little bit about your journey to where you are today or about your business, it's yours to do with what you would like.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to do that. I have a quick question for you first, though. When you're talking about, you call it a redirection. Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, so right now, like a study came out yesterday and it said they polled, I don't know, 2,500 millennials that had left their job, and 70% of them said they weren't happy. And so I found, at least for myself personally, that when there were things in my job that I wasn't happy about, there's always that tendency to want to leave, to change things. And really, it is an opportunity for us to redirect that attention inward and to find out what really lights us up, because that uncomfortableness that becomes normal is we get comfortable with it. And so it's an invitation to get uncomfortable again and redirect it into like what will really make me happy versus just moving jobs, which is only kicking the can down the road. So that's what I mean by redirection.
Okay, great. Thanks for explaining that, because I was very curious as to what you meant by that, because we're all reading things about this and interpreting things different ways. But yeah, absolutely. Like my career started out working in corporate. I worked in some really large work companies in Toronto early in my career. Like I went to college for advertising and started at one of the biggest agencies in Toronto right out of the gate. So I was very fortunate to do that, and then continued to kind of have that type of big brand career path, working for some other companies like GE Capital and Hostess Frito-Lay, and working on big accounts like Ford Motor Company. And so always very much in sales and marketing. But, right from, so we were kind of conditioned, I think, right from school, the conventional wisdom is you get a job. The idea of entrepreneurship wasn't really even presented. I don't know. Was it presented to you when you were looking at your career path?
No, I literally decided at probably 15 I was going to be a CPA. And I didn't really even know what that was, but I was like, oh, I'm just going to be a CPA. And then later on, I was like, where were the guidance counselors? But again, it was a very different time when I graduated high school.
Yeah, absolutely. And I chose advertising because there was no math. I didn't have to do any math. It was all communication.
And I chose math because there was no art.
Oh, that's funny. But, you were pointed in a direction, and then you go and you work for an organization, and you show up and people tell you what to do. And that's kind of, we're conditioned to be told what to do. And the more you do, that's what's rewarded. Is you're rewarded for the output you have and the productivity side of things. And And the definition of success is climbing the ladder, and that meant, putting in more hours and working through lunches and working weekends and sacrificing holiday time and missing time with family and friends, because the goal was to just do better at work, because that's how you would make more money. And that was the definition of success.
Oh, so you mean that wasn't just in public accounting? That happened in other industries as
Uh,
well.
well, that's my experience in several different organizations, and I love the places that I worked. Actually,
Mhm.
I don't. I learned so much, which is what I have to bring to the table now. So, I don't regret anything that I did. I just did. I guess I would say I didn't know any better than to start asking questions like, what do I really want? Because I just did what I was good at and what everybody else wanted me to do or thought I should want to do. And I never really
Mhm.
sat down and thought about, what do I want? Is this making me happy? Versus, like, you love when someone's telling you you're doing a good job. And when you do a good job, you get rewarded with more work. That was the reward. I don't know if that was the reward for you.
Yeah, yeah, it was. Well, and there were times though, even where I would look at it and like, I'm working really hard, but then it was like someone was more book smart and I was more, I want to say like critical thinking, right? Like I had street smarts and not necessarily book smarts. And so even when I was hustling, other people actually like would get rewarded for something. And I was just like, I was working even harder,
Yeah.
but didn't get, that same recognition. So it went both ways, but yes, the harder I worked, the more work that I got. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because several times, it got, so I went from my corporate career and had the opportunity to get started with my own business. I had a general manager who was like a mentor of mine still. He's awesome. And I'd kind of gone as far as I could go on the career path that I had in this organization. And he'd been promoted to the US, and I knew that if I continued doing what I was doing in this company, that I didn't have really anywhere to go. And I really
Mm,
wanted to start my own business, but I didn't know what that looked like at the time. So I didn't really, when I started my own business, it wasn't traditional, build a business plan, do this, go get funding or anything like that. It was an invitation to work freelance for him when he moved to the States, and kind of get out on my own and start my own business, which was, really awesome invitation. He actually set me up with my office for the first year. So how does it get any better than that?
yeah.
So great
Well,
opportunity.
and Chris, like given what you do and what you said, it's not that traditional start a business, you go
Yeah.
get some funding and do a business plan. But I have to imagine that it's actually a lot like that for a lot of people. Because like when I went out and started, I didn't do anything that when I wanted to go bigger and I was looking at financing, sure, then I went and did a business plan. But when I went out on my own, I was like, I'm just going out on my own. And
Yeah.
you kind of figure it out as you go. And luckily for you, you had someone that set you up an office so that you kind of had a little bit of a support system, right? You can figure out
Yeah.
some other stuff while this is already there. But again, going back to, I'm guessing a lot of people are starting their businesses that way.
Yeah, and so how I describe it, even though I said, I've got my own business, I've got my own business, what I really think I did was create a job for myself, which was, fine at the time, but it took me about 5 years to realize, wait a minute, I'm not, not I'm trying to build a business here, and I had the mindset of an employee still and a
Mm,
freelancer. So more, and I feel like that's maybe typical as well, because it takes a while to really kind of get the hang of leading something. I
yeah.
don't know, how do you, like, was your experience similar?
In ways it was, I think because I had gone high enough in the firm and done a lot of stuff and, having conversations with partners about the things that they're having to look at. Now, granted, I didn't see all the interworkings and sit in partner meetings, but I had been in business long enough. I had worked with businesses in many capacities. And because as a CPA, you're kind of talking about different
Sure.
aspects of a business. So there was a lot of foundational things within a business that I knew, things that I knew that I would need to establish. The one place that I got caught up, and I think that a lot of people do, is how do I price my services? Where does that look? Because I left a firm where they're charging $500 an hour, which there's more overhead. There's a lot that goes into that, just like any business, right? You go and
Right.
they're going to have an overhead that it's attached to it. And that's what you're paying for. All of the people that are touching that product to now I'm doing all of the touching. How do I price that? Because my price had always been set for me. And
Yes.
so that's where I think what I have seen working with people, they really struggle with how, and really it's owning your value, owning your worth, but they struggle with what's that number that I put on my services, whether it be a package or an hour, because it's always been set for me. And now they're having to put themselves out there, maybe in something completely new as well. And that's the mindset shift of you're not an employee anymore. You are an owner, and how do you own that fully and put that out there in a way that you're fully compensated for it?
Absolutely. And I think that takes some practice and trying to understand, how what people value about your service, because it really doesn't matter what number we put on it. It's the
Mhm.
number that someone else values and what they're willing to pay for it. And
Right.
we, need to be competitive and figure out what our unique value proposition is. Um, I just found that, as much as I had the experience of working in all different areas of the business, because of it was very much sales and marketing. So sales, marketing, customer care, and really those are and all about the numbers. That's the one thing I find in the workplace too, that is very different the minute that you go out on your own. The minute you go out on your own, you're having to make sure you deliver an ROI, when that is not something that we even think about as an employee. Is
Mhm.
what ROI are we generating for the business? So I found that my mindset shift took a while to go from working just in the business, being concerned about getting clients and keeping clients happy, versus the planning of working on the business and how was I going to market myself and how was I going to keep the pipeline full of prospects and customers. And so that was the transition that took me a little longer to realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing great taking care of my clients, but I'm not feeding the system to keep generating more clients. And
Yeah.
I feel like what I brought with me was the same mindset of working in the business. It's still that, the more hours you put in, the better you must be doing. And that's the piece that I've really had to spend years unlearning.
Yes. Yes. Well, and we could probably, Wonder Twins superpower, whatever. What was that saying, from that cartoon? I'm dating myself probably. So yeah, because you probably have the skills that I am weaker on, and then I probably have some. It's like you're trying to build a business where normally there's probably more partners than
A
that
team.
each bring their own attributes, and we're having to do it on our own
Yeah.
because sales, I could do it. I used to work in a jewelry store, but I was more like my approach was just I just want to be like, let's be friends. Let's talk. Let me get to know you. And
Yeah.
if there's something here that you are interested in that you want to buy, then I want to help you with that. But it was never that, like, I wasn't about the sales first, right? It's about that connection. So when it comes to me and how the sales, I don't like that. It's like, it's the investment that people are being invited to make.
Sure.
But it is sales, right? Like the sale aspect of it to me, that was always like, how do I show up in that space? And but then there's other people who are like, I'm terrible with numbers. And so you have to wear all of those hats and move them around. And it is a process. I struggled, with different aspects of it. Like even back in corporate, I did not like networking because there was always this, who are you going to meet kind of thing. And I just want to meet people, right? It's
Yeah.
not about that next client and bringing that energy to it. So I hear
Right.
what you're saying. And to kind of redirect on that, because I'm sure a lot of people can understand and appreciate that. Sales is probably one of the big things that I hear from people that they struggle with the most, which again, your ROI, your profitability is really super important to the business, but they can be struggling with the sales aspect. And then even, how do I keep that funnel, so to speak, moving and bringing people in so that my business is continuing to flourish and grow. But um and just to kind of take a step back too, is I was sharing with you, I listened to a video that you created and you were sharing some of your story. You went all in, by the way. Like, I was, whoa. And so you shared that clip from the movie Moneyball, which I've never seen that movie, so now I need to go see it, right?
Yes.
But about going all in, and you went all in, like you sold your home so that you could really fully invest in your business. And I'm curious, how was that when you first started out, and how is it now in like where you are in your business? I'm just
Um,
curious about that, because that's huge, going all in. And
for
I
sure.
celebrate you fully for that.
Well, I mean, there's been certainly, as to everything else, there's an evolution. And so, just kind of a quick recap, 10 years in corporate and then 15, close to 17 years having my own sales and marketing agency, where my job was helping I had corporate clients and independently owned and operated local clients in the heavy industrial and home improvement space. That's who I helped, but
Okay.
really helped them capitalize on their leads, turn those leads into opportunities and opportunities into sales. So that's how I got paid, by making sure that happened and delivering profits to the business. But when just the last 6 years with running my business called Lead Dog, everything, unexpected things happen to all of us. It's called life. And my parents both got ill. So I had to make some tough decisions about well, they weren't tough decisions. They were, I guess, some business decisions, but, I really wanted to make sure that I was there for my mom and dad.
Mhm.
And as things progressed, nobody was going to get better. And I knew that. And I decided that, the business. So, number one, I decided that if I was going to be able to help anyone, I needed to look after myself first. That was it. I need just all of a sudden, it was crystal clear that I hadn't been taking good care of myself. And how would I help my mom and dad if I didn't take care of myself? And then I started thinking, as things progressed and my mom passed away and my dad was ill, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this business that I have now is not delivering the life I want, because I'm missing out on my life. So how I need to change that. And I didn't like the idea of trying to um, I essentially had my employees run the business for me while I was helping my mom and dad. So I was doing both. So part-time helping my mom and dad, part-time in the business. And that kind of didn't leave me in the best position financially. So I was going to have to kind of do a rebuild, and I wasn't anxious to do the rebuild. Wasn't feeling passionate about the industries anymore, but more than anything, it's like, wait a minute, this is not the life I want. I haven't built the life I want. And what life do I want? So that's when I decided I needed to take a step back to be able to move forward. And so that's what I've done with Follow My Side Hustle, is really now completely designing a business that serves my life versus running my life around my business.
Yes.
That's
Yes, 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 yes. Like, that's what I'm about too. Like, how, it's building our dreams that are in alignment with who we are. It's like, I call it that zone of alignment, right? When
Yep,
everything's like working. And so,
absolutely.
um, and I think, first off, I'm sure I acknowledge that was probably, without a doubt, a very difficult time to walk through. And,
Yep.
sending you my love and condolences as, losing both of your parents in such short amount of time. But in a way, like, I think that, I don't know, is there's probably a lot of people that are walking through that right now, that redirection, even that we talked about at the beginning of, I've built this life, I've built this career. And that's where I was like, I built this amazing career, but I wasn't taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And how do I do something new that is exciting to me, that is in alignment, that makes me happier and makes my family happier? And even one of the things that you said in that video was you had built a business that you were good at,
Yeah.
right? That I think, I can't remember, like it was that maybe you didn't love or you weren't passionate about, right? I don't
I
remember the words exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and we when people tell you you're doing a good job, and you're constantly, when you're conditioned to think that getting more, you must be doing great if you're getting more work, and it's just there, it's feeding the ego, but it's not necessary. So you think, oh well, I must be doing the right thing, this is successful, I'm making good money, I'm doing work that, and I didn't hate any of the work, but it was all about the work and none
Mm,
about me, and my, was I happy with who I was or who I had become? And then I realized that I was kind of one dimensional, I was just work. I had let everything else fall by the wayside. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't sleeping properly, like 4 hours, 5 hours a night sleep for
mhm.
years, because I
Yeah.
thought everything else was more important. And then I guess, I don't know, I hope nobody has these wake up calls, but when my mom got sick, and my mom, she loved to play the lottery, and she loved to go to bingo, and she loved to do the scratch tickets, and she thought that that was the way that she was going to get rich. But the thing
Mhm.
that just dawned on me, very quickly after she got sick, is it didn't matter how much money there was. It wouldn't matter. She could have $1 gazillion and it wasn't going to make her better. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm pursuing the wrong thing. Not that I want
Mhm.
money, I'm in business to make money, we're all in business to make
Right.
money, that's a goal, absolutely. But I don't want to do that at my own detriment. And I don't know about you, but I see other people getting to this retirement stage, and then their health declines rapidly because they haven't figured out who they are. They've
Yeah.
kind of lost a sense of they've lost their sense of purpose. And then I see them not kind of recovering from that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much in there. The money aspect is, there's a lot of people who will come to me and say, well, one day, when or if I won the lottery, this is what I would do, right? These things that they're waiting for, and that
Yeah.
somehow the money is the magic bullet, which it's not.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying, like, even that redirection of going to a new job
Yeah.
is, there's a lot that you can find within yourself. It just shows up in your money, as
Yes.
to what it is that you're believing. But I am just like you. I say all the time, like, your dreams, which, people call them goals, I call them dreams.
Sure.
Goals are maybe like those stepping stones to your dreams, or vice versa. I don't know, however you want to look at it. I don't put any limitations on it. But I always say, it's like, dreams are not a one day thing. They're an everyday thing. And I think we've lost sight of that. At least I did when I was, it's kind of like that old psychology. I did one psychology class in school. And as you were talking, it's like that mouse that keeps going back for the
Yeah.
treat. And even if it
Yeah.
gets snapped, it'll go back, because we get conditioned. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this sucks. Ouch. Oh, I'm not going to go over there and get that cheese. And then we go back and see if the cheese is there. And that's kind of that little rat race, so to speak, that they talk about, that we can get pulled into in our career. But it's really like, how do we live our dreams now? Because we are. I wanted to be a CPA. I became a CPA. I wanted to get married. I became a wife. So there's all these things that, even the small things that we're doing each day, that we're living our dreams. I personally just forgot that they were my dreams. I just thought it was more and more thing that I was checking off of life.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I was so unfulfilled. I had major health issues. I knew that if I didn't take care of myself, the next time I ended up in the hospital, I probably would be in a bag or something like that, because I just was pushing myself too hard. And I stopped to say, like, what am I doing? Like, what am I contributing here? And if it's not making me happy, which I loved accounting, I loved it for a long time, but if it wasn't fulfilling me, then what did? What value am I adding, and how can I do it differently? And I think that thing of identifying that passion of why we're doing it is also that thing that, going back to when we were talking about, I have to do the sales and the accounting and the marketing and the client engagement, and I'm wearing all of these hats. It's what helps to keep me going when at times I'm like, what did I do? I walked
Yeah.
away from a really big salary and working crazy hours to now I think about my business all the time. But it's that passion. It's working with people, and like just one person and seeing them make changes in their life. It makes it so worth it, because it's nothing that I ever felt when I was doing a tax return.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I guess that's the what I think the whole point of this is, we've been chasing external things instead of internal things. And anytime I chase, like anytime I have made the choice to choose the money, it hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out. Because I've chosen that because it's the safe thing to do. It's what someone else has encouraged you to do, but it's not really what you feel like you want to do. So every time I've made that choice for myself, and I even one time in my business had a client persuade me to, just come work for us. We need you. And I thought, it was such an attractive offer. Maybe I should try this. So I kind of did it tentatively, but kept things going on the side with my business. And it just, and I said, I said to them, I remember saying to them, if you put me in a box, I know I won't stay, because that's not, like, I do not thrive in a box. I need to be able to bring my own, like, I'm not good at just coming in and having a checklist of things to check off. And it just didn't work out. I mean, it worked for a short time and I made them a lot of money. But
Mm-hmm.
it was just back to the, I was limiting my potential. I was limiting my paycheck. I was limiting my creativity. And I was back to the grind where I was not looking after myself again. And I'm like, oh, this is, yeah, stop it. So,
Yeah. Well, and I find for myself that those are also opportunities for me to see how much I've grown, because
mhm.
I don't know about you, but when I went and so when I stepped away, I created a consulting practice. And then, like, as time evolved, this coaching evolved, the certified money coaching and all of that. And now I'm doing what I'm doing as a soul self wealth doula, and new things are always emerging. But in there was that piece where I was like, okay, well, life is what it is. I'm going to utilize my CPA skills. But when I went in there, I was like, oh, I'm such a different person now. And
Yeah,
I had more of that confidence to, I think, stay true to that. But I can also relate to what you're saying, is it's very familiar and it's easy to slide back into the old way of doing things. And for me, even I saw, oh, I'll just stay a little later and stay a
yeah.
little later. Oh, sure, I'll do that. So that can creep back in, but then it shows us something new about how far we've come. And it's a lot easier to pop back into building our dream. So
I
they're all
agree.
lessons.
I have a question for you, because I think, to me, this is a huge part of it, but I really believe it's who we've got around us. And
Yeah.
like, when you only have people, when you don't have people who believe what you believe and think the way that you think, and they're still kind of in that traditional mindset of a traditional work environment, it's just easy to get pulled back over. So I just think that, in order for us to flourish, we've got to be so protective of who we surround ourselves with, and what we feed our mind in any capacity, with social media, with news, with the people we associate with. I have had to make the tough decision, not just like letting like job security go and different things, like make the decision to sell my house, but I've had to not necessarily completely end friendships and relationships, but just really limit them, because they are not helpful to what I'm trying to accomplish.
Hmm.
It's too easy to get your dreams squashed if you're surrounding yourself with the wrong people.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely been a journey. I will say the majority of the time, especially with the pandemic, the person I was hanging out with the most was me and all the voices in my head. So that's dangerous. There was someone I was listening to, Jeremy Hunter, I think he said, is, 70% of the time, 70 something percent of the time, our mind wanders and it's generally hanging out in a bad neighborhood. So,
I have not heard
which
that, but
which
true.
is true. Like, for me, my brain can go to that place,
Yeah.
that doubting, that judgment, and it is a great opportunity for me to say, well, where is that really coming from? But I do get stuck in it. Like, someone will say something and I just go down this, like, I don't want to say like a hole, but I just kind of go inward. I'm like, oh, that hurt. And it becomes very personal. Um, but there is growth in it because I always say, okay, this is for me. What am I going to learn from this? But it does happen that people don't understand, like you were sharing, like people don't necessarily understand what I'm doing. Certain generations don't understand. I think that there's a lot of people in my generation and maybe younger that they're making changes. So the language is a little bit more comfortable. My husband is super supportive, but he doesn't always understand what I do. He's asked me more than once what my website is.
Yeah.
It's my name.
Yeah.
So yes, I believe that the community that you have around you is so vital. I have a really strong community. When I first started, I reached out to somebody and I ended up joining Elevate Alliance, which is a lot of women, female business owners, entrepreneurs, but heart led.
Okay.
Like we got each other. It's similar language. And then through that, I developed a like really strong relationship with Mariette, who is how I met you.
Yes.
And she's my accountability partner and that person that I can go to because she gets it. I can, but to go to my husband and say, this is, oh gosh, I'm so worried about my business and whatever.
Yeah.
He's in this house too. And he wants to take care of me. So that's a different versus if I go to someone and like, here's where I'm struggling, they can remind me why I'm doing this. They can encourage me and, just like lift me up and not like go like try to caretake me and be part of my pity party. They're
Yeah.
going to remind me of the true potential of what it is that I can create. And it's like, okay, well, what can we do here now? Like Mariette is so great about that. But then
For
also
sure.
honoring that there's times that I'm just going to be sad and I'm going to be in it and I'm going to be feeling my emotions. And it's like, you know what? I know I can. And let me, like, let's just house this for a moment and acknowledge that there's this piece of me that is really scared right now. But the adult version of us, we know that I'm going to get through it. So yeah, the quote is, you're the average of the 5 people you spend time with.
Right.
So being really discerning and intentional about those relationships. I've developed so many amazing relationships with mostly women. There's some few
Mhm.
men in there, but
Yeah.
mostly women. And I have also had to kind of put some to the side that were just as much work as I've done on myself and as much as I want to be so loving and accepting, I have to honor that that isn't the best relationship for me to be in right now, and that's okay. And like
Yeah.
to wish that person well. So
Absolutely.
yes, I can understand and appreciate what you're talking about. And you even shared, right? You have family members that don't always understand what it is that
Yeah.
we're doing. And that will happen. I remember when I left, when I decided that I was going to transition, midlife change of passion, as Elizabeth Gilbert says. I'm leaving this big, huge salary, right? Comfort and a 20 something year career. And somebody said to me, like, and, like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, oh, I'm going to have my own business, be at home more. And someone said, well, I never thought that you were a person that would settle. And I'm like,
Oh,
huh,
wow.
that's really
That's their perception of settling. Isn't that interesting?
yeah, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, like, I
Wow.
settled for a whole lot less just by living my life in my job."
Yeah. That's
This is actually choosing to but it's people's perception. Again, it's
perception.
going back to money, right?
Yeah.
Like, money is everything, that it can bring everything, and it
True.
can't. It's
No.
that happiness from within, and that's what your business is all about. So, we've been sharing all of this in our personal journeys and everything, and within your business, I've looked at your website and read your stuff and listened to you. People who maybe want to do the side hustle and still love their jobs, people who are wanting to escape that box that people want to put them in. And that doesn't always necessarily mean you leave your job. It's just, how
Yep.
do you better define yourself within your company that you work for? And
Yep.
then also, you work with people just like that are like, hey, I'm ready to, like, I'm leaving this career. How do I do that? And so
Make the
I would
leap.
love to hear more about just your passion behind that. I mean, obviously your own journey, but what makes you most excited to do that with people? And, like you were saying, companies often look at the numbers and not the people, right? And
Right.
who they are. So for you, I'm sure you're pretty intentional in who it is that you're working with. And I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I guess my belief is that the first wealth is health. So that's where I really like to start when I'm working with my clients in my business. And yes, whether you just want to make your job that you have, maybe you love it and you want to stay there, but you just see an opportunity to improve that, or you do want to take your side hustle to the next level and make it your job. Really, what I see my role as is really helping you like figure out, what life do I want, align that with your business, let's build your business around that. And uh, it's not a short-term journey, it's a long-term journey. There is no quick wins, and it's about finding the right person to work with you who is going to. So I talk about, like, there's the coaching side and there's the training side. And the reason that I love um, the coaching, it very much, I see business owners as athletes. I love sports. I'm a sports fan. I'm a CrossFit person. I play baseball. I do all kinds of sports. But I think the sports people have it figured out, because every athlete is able to perform at the level that they're able to perform because they have a team behind them supporting them.
Mm.
They have that nutritionist, they have that mental performance coach, they have their conditioning coach, they have the people that help them look after their massage needs and everything else. So I'm trying to help set businesses up so that we're taking into consideration all this holistic view of the person and the business athlete, but really to ask you the tough questions, challenge you, give you the tools and techniques that you need, present your options so that it's not a one size fits all, because it's different and we want to get the best out of you for your performance as the leader, but also for your business to perform to its potential, which means it's not like your framework or my framework or someone else's. It's the ability for me to help you figure out, what does yours look like aligned with your values, your strengths. And then we're going to figure out the training needs that you have and what your education plan looks like. And, how are you going to budget for that? Because we need to consider all these things. And
Mhm.
it's a build process. Like I kind of often tell people, when you go to the gym and you want to get in shape, um, you're not going to do it in 6 weeks. And you can't go there and say, hey, I was like, Jamie is my trainer. Hey, Jamie, I don't feel like doing the workout today. Can you do it for me? And then I still get the results. Like, no, we have
Yeah.
to be prepared to put in the work. So it's a combination of all of those things, but it's that coaching piece to ask the tough questions, to challenge. It's the training and presenting you with the options to build so that you get the result that you're expecting to get at the end.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question too about that is, um, I have people come to me, and not everybody, because, there are people out there that are a little bit more financially stable to build out a business. And so there are people, though, that are maybe starting a side hustle. A lot has happened in the last couple of years financially to people's, like, what their comfort level of where they thought they were and where they're coming from. But when you have a client and they're I'm doing all this stuff, Chris. I'm just so tired. I'm doing the marketing, I'm doing the this, and I'm doing the that. And by the way, I haven't really paid attention to my numbers. I don't know where they're at, which can cause anxiety alone. Your self-care sounds really great, but right, that's always like, it sounds great, but I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the time and the money, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm sacrificing sleep, which is not creating a life that's aligned. I know for me, I found ways that I can do self-care that cost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about, like, for you in those situations, like, what is your go-to self-care that you could share with a client that, for one, helps kind of pull them out of that spiral that they're moving into, but obviously we can't force anyone to drink, as they say, but what would be that one or two that you would share with people?
Well, I like to call it building your business using mind over money, because that's
Mm,
what I think that, well, that's what I've done. And that's what I want to encourage people to do. We don't, it's not, if the money isn't available, then we have to be resourceful. And the resourceful piece is our own energy. So that's where we start, is by figuring out where do we need to spend our time? Where is our energy going to deliver the biggest results in our business and the biggest financial results? And we're going to figure out how you like to put yourself out there to market, and we're going to put those metrics in place. And it doesn't have to be expensive. And I have I have a membership program that I'm building, and I've intentionally kept it very cost effective for anybody. You've got to have some skin in the game. Number one, like you
right.
can't build a business for free. So if you think you can, maybe you can over time, and give it a go if that's what you need to do right now, or you think you need to do right now. But honestly, like, my goal is to get you there faster with the experience that I have to bring to the table. But we're all in business to make money. You've got to have a little skin in the game. But that's I want to keep it intentionally affordable for people, because I know they're going to have to invest in other areas that you're going to make. We're going to look at the numbers are going to drive that, though. So back to that Moneyball movie. The reason why I think that's such a great movie is because it's the the movie is essentially about the Oakland A's are a ball club that has to put a team roster together with $40 million, and they're competing against the New York Yankees, who has $114 million to put their team together. So they've got to be really smart about it. Well, what baseball was traditionally doing was they were looking at the people and not the data, necessarily, not the right data. So the new coach of the Oakland Athletics came in, and they found a way to look at, how do we really win games? Well, we get players on bases. So how can we build a roster of people for the money we have to get people on
Mm,
base? Because when you have people on base, you have the opportunity to score more runs. Well, business is the same. We want to score leads. Leads are what's going to lead to sales. So how are we going to get the most cost effective leads? And that means using your energy in the right place to drive those leads for the most cost effective, monetarily, and cost effective from your energy. And that's where I think the money will follow.
yeah, I agree with you. Okay, and by the way, that's gold there. I think you need a webinar, building your business on mind over money. That's a great little tagline. I
Very
love
good.
that. Oh, I wish I would have thought of it.
We'll share it.
Want to co-present?
Yes.
But no, I think that it is, because, and I ask people too, like, if it's not money, what is, like, if you can't use money as a reason, then what else might it be, right? To ask and get deeper below, like, beyond the money. And I wholeheartedly agree. Like, you can bring your energy to it. And I think both of you and I are passionate about, like, bring your energy to it. That's your true gift. That's the currency of your business, right? Like,
Yeah,
energy is current. And so your currency
100%.
of, so what are those gifts and how do you maximize them? It's kind of like in Strength Finder, they talk about
Yeah,
how Rudy, he gave it everything, but he was never going to be at that top level, right? So you could work at something and give it, well, you can't really give 150%, because wherever you're at 100%, right? But you
yeah,
could be cranking out 100% all of the time and never be the top expert in what you're doing. or you can go to what is really truly like that aligned gift that you have, and you could give it even 80% and you're hitting it out of the ballpark, right? If you're
Yeah.
focusing your energy.
Right.
So I wholeheartedly agree about finding that place for you and bringing your energy to it. Of course, being mindful that you have to, as what is it, Rumi says, like to give from your overflow, not from your well, right?
Right.
So that you're maintaining yourself. But in that, also, sometimes you have to just give yourself permission that's like that ball's going to drop. Something's not going to be delivered when you said it was
100%.
going to be delivered. And because somebody else is doing it that way doesn't mean that you have to do it that way, right? Like we go
Absolutely.
in business for it to be our own,
Yes.
not to build somebody else's dreams, to build our own dreams. And sometimes that looks really different. So I think that like when I was like looking at, because you shared with me what your kind of template of all of these amazing things that you like. I don't want to say it's not like a plan, because like you said, every business is different, every person is different, but the different tools that you can bring from your tool bag to help people in supporting that, yeah, it's not going to look like everybody else's. And sometimes this is, what would be point B for somebody else is going to be point G for you, right?
Yeah.
And allowing it to formulate on its own. Because going back to your sports analogy, that's what they're doing all the time. They have a playbook of plays that if this, then that. It's like a chess, right? You
Yeah.
have to wait for the other person to respond, so you know that how you're going to show up in that moment.
Well, and ultimately, business is business. Like if you look at a sports game, the rules of the game don't change. The rules of the game in business don't change either. There are like there's steps you have to take to get where you want to go, but you can just do it in use your own unique style to get there. So that's what's I can help you figure out and where you are on that journey. And, there's the build piece to your business. And, let's assess what you have in place for your foundation. And are you on the track that you want to be on? Is it delivering you the happiness that, what can we do to tweak it to get it going in the direction that you want it to go? And then the other place you talked a little bit about sales, that people get stuck with selling. They also get stuck with marketing. So that's the big piece, is figuring out like, what does my marketing plan look like? And maybe you're avoiding things because an investment of money, an investment of time, an investment of energy. Well, let's figure out what you have to work with, and then pick those activities that are going to still get you where you want to go, but they're unique to you. And you don't have to do things. We've got to determine whether you're just uncomfortable, because guess what? You better get used to being uncomfortable, because
Yeah.
that's just what the game is about. It's pushing you outside your comfort zone, and that's what makes you better. Or is it just like really not for you? Like, you're not going to see me on Instagram because that's just not something, like, it is uncomfortable, but to me, that's not the best use of my time and energy. So that's not a big part of my marketing plan. It's in there, but to me, that's the least return for the most amount of effort. So I won't be spending much time there.
Yeah.
So but again, if you love doing reels and you love doing, and that's your jam, then we can make that the place where you're generating leads. So it's finding out what fits you. And so I heard someone say this, I don't even know who it was, and this is why people I find tend to can get discouraging too. Like, what we're all doing is just kind of like putting something on and trying it on for size and seeing if it fits. Well, guess what? If it doesn't fit, we're going to pick something else, because there's a million ways to do it. And just because it's working, something fits for somebody, it doesn't fit for someone else. And that's kind of how I feel about my business and where I've arrived at this point. If I look at it for the sports analogy, like, I think I'm 0 for 2 for my career path. Like, my first corporate path, it fit for a while, and then it got uncomfortable and I couldn't make it fit anymore. And then building my own business, same thing. I got to the point where, this just doesn't fit me anymore. And now I have to try on a new outfit, and something that I chose for myself rather than someone chose for me. And that's kind of how I look at it. And if there's one thing we can all count on is change.
Yeah.
So we have to be flexible and adapt to change and look at it as an adventure now versus I never look at it as something I have to do. It's something I choose to do. It's a choose your own adventure, and it can be your unique style.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and honestly, Chris, I would say that you're 2-0, right? You keep that's how you
True.
keep that's how you keep moving up to the World Series. You have to win
Exactly.
games, and so
Yep.
you're moving up. If
Yep.
anything, if you had stayed and won and you were still there and you're just like someone said, like, Robina, why would you go to that? Why would you leave this company? You could be average and still be great. Like, well, do you really want to be average? You're playing in the minor leagues, right? You're like, no,
Yeah.
I want to make it to the World Series. And so kudos to you for that.
And you
'Cause-
do, and that's the thing. Like you will outgrow your coaches, and you should,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like I had awesome coaches. So you're right. I am 2 for 2, and I'm going for the home run with this one.
yeah. It is so
So,
true. By the way, anyone out there who's listening, you got to up level your coaches too.
yeah,
I had one for quite a few years, which she was really the person that helped me to find like myself, invited me to find myself. I had to do the work. She just put the invitation and asked the questions. And since then, I have changed coaches. And I think probably when you hit a year, that's probably a good time to transition because you get
yeah,
comfortable with somebody depending on the relationship. Like with her, it
sure.
was a few years and I definitely needed that
Yeah,
consistency early on. Whereas now I feel like I'm moving so much faster. So who I'm looking for is changing and evolving a lot faster. And I like meeting with one of my new coach today, and our mentor. She's not a coach, she's a mentor, and I'm super excited about that. But one of the things that you said in there, Chris, is business is still business, right? The rules of the game are still the same. And I kind of feel like not completely. I
okay.
feel like a lot of people, especially in what you're talking about, and what I do with people too, watching them transform their businesses and grow their mindset beyond the money, right?
Yeah,
Is I feel like we're writing some new rules about how the game of business is done. And that's really exciting. And I know this is on the spot, spur of the
yeah,
moment, but
yeah.
as we're kind of winding down, what do you think is one rule that you've either rewritten for yourself or you've completely changed the game on what the business rules are around something that you thought was the way that it was supposed to be done and you're like, no, I'm going to do this different. If you can think of anything, if not, that's okay.
Sure. No, I know immediately. So when I say the game hasn't changed, like if you are in a for-profit business, you are wanting to make money. So in order to make money, you have to generate leads. You have to turn that lead into an opportunity, and you have to turn that opportunity into a sale. And that's what I think is not going to change with the game of business. But what I think the conventional wisdom that I am setting out to change, that I believe you are also setting out to change, is not profit over people. That's how I think the conventional wisdom of business works. And that's how I have been conditioned to work. I feel like as an employee at a company, it is always about the profits first and the people second. But I believe that if we take care of the people first, that the profits will just naturally follow. I mean, if you look at business from let's pretend that it's just a manufacturing environment and you have machines that are producing at a certain level. Well, business, I think, looks at people the same way. They want you to produce at a certain level at your organization. But well, the way I said, like, machines get maintained, but we're
Yes.
not getting maintained as employees because it's all, in my experience, it's been frowned upon to, like, if you miss lunch, it's fine. If you don't get enough sleep, it's fine. If you do, you have to stay on call when you're on vacation, it's fine. Well, that's the part of the game that I think is wrong, that I want to change, because I believe that if I'm in top shape and I am sleeping well and I'm taking care of myself and there's space available to do all that, my business is going to thrive. So that's how I want to change the game.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And like, even as you're kind of talking about that, I'm thinking about, again, I'm going, because we're in this baseball, right? We're talking baseball.
Yeah, yeah.
Is, you have those top athletes. And by the way, we shouldn't just maintain the top athletes, the top
No,
performers. We should maintain everybody, because that's
everybody.
how you get them there. Is they're maintaining that machine that's shooting out a ball, right? You're doing some hitting practice, right? Like, you're dialing it in so it's precise. And so, yes, it's really important that we maintain our machinery and we give the best tools to the people. But at the end of the day, our people are the ones that are the most valuable, that keep those machines operating. Like, you can have the highest performing machine in the world, and if you don't have the person there to oversee it and, like,
Yes.
with their knowledge, then it doesn't mix. And I even would say during busy season, because there were nights where I literally had an hour or two sleep,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
and I would say, like, there's a point of diminishing returns. It
Absolutely.
may get done, but the quality by which it's getting done is going down by the minute that I stay here any longer. And sadly, I probably told that to my team more than myself, and listened to it. But I agree with you. It really truly is about the people. We're seeing that in, people asking. I've been listening to the surveys of what people are looking for. It's not about the money. They want to
No.
be seen. And even with you, and we haven't really talked about, like, some of your awesome programs, like, at 30, I think you had a 30-day escape the cubicle. Like, anyone
Yeah.
can find that on your
Yeah.
website, and I'll share it in a
That's
minute.
right.
But going to, like, even just creating a side hustle. So for me, I love making my own bracelets, right? So if I were back in public accounting, for example, and I'm just making bracelets, which I would draw, I would randomly draw during busy season. John Garrett, if you're familiar with him, he's What's Your And? That's his
Okay.
podcast. He has a book called What's Your And? And in there, he says that people who have that and CrossFit and baseball, they're
Yeah.
happier. And then it
Yes.
creates something that you can connect with your coworkers, your boss, your clients with. It gives you more that you can talk about and connect with people, and your productivity increases. So I wholeheartedly agree with all of that, because if I go and I'm making bracelets, even in running my business, I can come back and I'm like, oh, okay, let's let's create, Robina. Let's do something and connect with people. So yes, I
Well,
agree with you there.
I was
But
gonna just the one thing about that is because
yeah,
that turns the conversation to who you are instead of what you do. Like,
yeah,
when you meet someone anywhere, you kind of always like, hey, yeah, nice to meet you, Rabina. What do you do? It's not
mhm,
nice to meet you, Rabina. You know, what's something that you're interested in? Or, like, we don't ask about who the person is. We ask immediately about what you do.
right.
I think I want to change the question. Like, I would like to pose the question, how would your life be different if when we were growing up, we were asked who we want to be instead of what do you want to do? Because
Yeah,
we didn't,
yeah,
we did, I didn't get asked that question. And when I finally did, I didn't have an answer. And
yeah.
I've been trying to design the answer ever since.
Yeah. Well, and I meet a lot of people who say that, I say, "What sparks joy?" They're like, "I don't know." Like,
Yeah.
we lost that dream muscle because we become so much of we're known as a project manager, an
Yes.
accountant, a graphic designer, an attorney, a teacher, right? There's these labels of what our job is versus, so tell me, what do you do when you're not at
At
work?
work.
Right? Like, extending it. And my husband is like, he has a superpower. I think, because I personally think he's really smart and, like, knows a lot of things. But maybe it's a men thing. They always have sports or cars
Yeah.
or schools. Like, he always has this list of things that he can go to and he can connect with any guy on. Like,
Yeah.
if a guy doesn't know cars or sports or um, history, I don't know. I don't know what he does talk about with him. So
Sure.
yeah, having that extra thing that we can connect with. And even going back to when I was working in the jewelry store, it was always about the person. It wasn't about the profit, like you said, right?
Yeah.
And for me, when I think about when I'm setting my intentions, it's who do I want to be in that
Be.
moment?
Yeah.
Not what do I want to accomplish at the end. Because if I'm so focused on this end goal, then it's all about what I'm wanting from somebody else and not who do I want to be regardless of the outcome with that person, and how do
Well,
I
and we
want to
can't control outcomes. Like that's the one thing
be.
that we can only control the journey. So who do we want to be on the journey? And are we, have we even sat down to figure out who that is and what are
Mhm.
those non-negotiables? So that's how I've
Yeah.
changed. Like now, going to the gym isn't non-negotiable. That's just something that's part of who I am now. It's not what I do. And my that's how I like to think of my work. It's like my identity is no longer just tied to my work. It's that 360-degree view of the person versus just I am a project manager, or I am a CPA, or I am a business owner. No, I'm a woman who does this, who happens to own a business that I love.
Right. Yes, that you do CrossFit and other amazing things. So I'm looking at the time,
Yep,
so I want to be mindful of that, of everybody's time and
of
yours.
course.
I am going to put up here, but while I am, just share with everybody how they can reach you, whether it be, and I'm putting your website up here, but
Thank
maybe if
you.
you want to share an email,
Yeah,
go
my
ahead.
email is just Chris at followmysidehustle.com, and happy to answer any questions, start a conversation. And I offer a free strategy session for an hour if anyone wants to investigate the possibilities. So by all means, don't hesitate to get in touch. Chris at followmysidehustle.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Chris. I'm so excited we had this conversation. Honestly, I think we could do a part two because I had all of these ideas come up as I was listening to your sharing. Thank you to everyone who is out there that is listening, whether you're listening now or you're listening in the future. I thank you. And again, as we said, that this is the place that you get to come as you are and you leave as you're meant to be, as you rediscover what is normal for you. And if you want to know more about what Chris does, again, you can visit her at followmysidehustle.com. And if you'd like to know more about what I do, you can visit my website, which is robinabennion.com, and check out the Soul Self Wealth Guidebook, which is all about creating a life and your dreams that are in alignment with who you are so that you can live your best life now and not wait until one day. So, again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Chris, so
Thank
much
you,
for being
Robina.
here. Until we meet again.
Thank you.
Thank you.